Good evening. Welcome in Delhi UPSC editorial audio program. Language, my lord, Times of India. License to skill. Ensure more bang for the CSR buck. The Economic Times. Fighting stereotypes. The Hindu. Now the full editorial. Language, my lords, the Times of India. Supreme Court's handbook aimed at removing sexist descriptor for women will hopefully clean up judicial discourses. The law has long looked through the eyes of men. Judges and lawyers have been men for the most part, or have been formed by our patriarchal society. All too many judgments and observations have perpetuated sexist reasoning, their mental shortcuts about good and bad, women or ideal families or the right kind of victims. Victim have implications for the women seeking justice now. Now, the Supreme Court has launched a handbook on combating gender stereotypes. The guide flags words like concubine or dutiful wife or fagot, which encoded a frankly toxic worldview and suggests alternatives. This is entirely welcome. Language articulates consciousness, and changing words is crucial to changing thoughts. The law lives through language. Words used in court have material power over our lives. Terms like housewife, chaste woman, or mistress are not neutral descriptors. They carry a payload of social judgment. They paint a picture of the male as a provider and the good female as dependent and docile. They question sexual freedom of women and sexual minorities. These attributed roles are the assumptions of a sexist world, which have which where men have traditionally had assets and income and women provide sexual and domestic services. Our courts have often displayed ba- blatantly sexist logic in judgments, telling rapists to get rakis tied by their victims or to marry them. Matrimonial jur- jurisprudence has made much of norms like Mangal Sutra and Sindoor or the right conduct within laws. Sexist stereotype also often sway matter of separation and custody. In case of sexual violence or abuse, women's rights often recede in, into the background and the focus is on their imagined honor. The victim's behavior is put on trial for how closely they live up to the chaste norm. It is telling that a sexual crime is cast as offending the modesty of a woman rather than an infringement of her bodily autonomy. This handbook might make judges and lawyers reflect on their own sympathies and instinct. It might give them pause, sees things from the better angle, and that would mean setting things right for roughly half of India. License to skill. Government of India scheme for craftspeople is a good idea, but its success critically depends on finding markets. A day after Modi, in his Independence Day speech, said Government of India will begin a scheme to add people working in areas based on traditional skills. PM Vishwakarma was unveiled a central sector scheme. It will offer aid of 13,000 crore over 5 years in the form of concessional loans. Beneficiaries will mostly be overseas. Craft people with the relevant documents will be eligible for a loan of up to rupees 3 lakh. Included in the scheme design are plans to upgrade skills and integrate them with domestic and global value chains. Government of India's statement said the scheme aims to nurture family-based practice on traditional skills since the skilling process happens with a closed environment. The primary challenge here is access to market. Traditional skills globally struggle to compete on cost with modern alternatives. Some example of traditional craft people cited by Government of India, such as toy makers and fishing net makers, cannot compete on cost with factory-made alternatives. Therefore, for the investment to show results from an economic standpoint, the scheme's goal of linking them with marketing value chains will be critical. Fiscal outlay also reflect political choices, and it is no surprise that overseas will be the principal beneficiaries. PM Vishwakarma's approach of soft loan will undoubtedly be of use to many engaged in traditional occupations. India's economic transformation, however, require skilling in modern jobs. Jobs in these sectors are also in sync with the aspiration of many young people in families engaged in traditional occupations. Give that Vishwakarma is not what India needs to build up a workforce for a modern economy. That said, it is important to preserve traditional skills as they represent an intangible cultural legacy of India. In this respect, India will do well to study the manner Japan has used both physical resource and legislation to preserve traditional skills, and while journeying to a deployed country status. Vishwakarma will be of help to traditional craft people, but its long-term impact will crucially depend on creating a market where they don't compete with alternatives on cost. Ensure more bang for the CSR buck. The Economic Times. CSR funding continues to have two favorites: health and education. According to the Economic Times analysis of new corporate affairs ministry data, the third position now is in Enviro spend, which has increased by 70% since CSR became mandatory in financial year 2022 and double the amount of financial year 21, displacing rural development for medal position. Total CSR spending has increased by about 80% since 2014-15, when it became mandatory for businesses to have a certain threshold to spend a minimum of 2% of their 3-year average net profit towards social cost. From 6,338 crore in financial year 14, CSR spending rose to 25,933 crore in financial year 22. But here is the thing: despite the increased flow of funds, CSR impact has been limited. The requirement that businesses use CSR funds in their area of operation results in concentrating spending on education and health. Schools provide for a straightforward avenue to undertake CSR. Similarly, with health, where spending includes initiatives relating to dealing with hunger, malnutrition, drinking waterline sanitation. The pandemic also pushed up health spend. Despite the major jump in environment related spend in absolute term, it remains relatively small. And for perspective, this kitty includes animal welfare, tree plantation, and resource conservation. For CSR spending to be leveraged and have impact, there must be a greater alignment between spending plans of individual businesses and national priorities in the sector. Using CSR fund for capital and operational expenditure will improve impact. CSR spends are marked by regional imbalance concentrated in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh, while Northeast states account for less than 1%. Time to revisit now. CSR funds are utilized to maximize impact. Fighting stereotype. The Hindu code guidelines on gender typecasting can be a catalyst for change. In the quest for equal rights for all, the Supreme Court of India has taken an important step by releasing guidelines to take on harmful gender stereotypes that perpetuate inequalities, laying down a set of do's and don'ts for judicial decision making and writings. The handbook on combating gender stereotypes helps judges identify language that promotes archaic and incorrect ideas about women in particular, and offer alternative words and phrases. Instead of affair, it will be de rigueur to say a relationship outside of marriage. uh, Similarly, for adulteress, the preferred usage is a woman who has engaged in sexual relations outside of marriage. A host of derogatory and seemingly mild adjectives have been dropped too. while referring to women. For instance, it is no longer chaste woman, dutiful wife, uh, chaste woman, duty, dutiful wife, housewife, a plain woman, wife, and homemaker will do. Men have not been forgotten either, with the court striking down words such as effeminate when used pejoratively, and fagot with the directive accurately describe the individual's sexual orientation, homosexual or bisexual, pointing out that stereotype, a set idea that people have about what someone or something is like, especially an idea that is wrong, lead to exclusion and discrimination. It identifies common presumptions about the way sexual harassment, assault, rape, and other violent crimes are viewed, skewed against women. On the stereotypes, the code setters is women do not wear traditional clothes and smoke or drink, are asking for trouble, and drives home the important point of consent. It also firmly asserts that women who are sexually assaulted may not be able to immediately report the traumatic incident. Courts should take social realities and other challenges facing women seriously. It say it is wrong. The court adds to assume women are overly emotional, illogical, and cannot take decisions. It is also a stereotype presumptions that all women want to have children, says the handbook, and points out deciding to become a parent is an individual choice. These possibilities to be able to choose what to do in life are still frustratingly out of reach for most of India's women. In a largely patriarchal society, girls are often forced to pick marriage as a way out to avoid social stigma and not education as and a career. Even if things are changing, the pace is slow. To achieve gender equality, fundamental changes need to be made to shun all stereotypes. The women are more nurturing and better suited to care for others and should do. All household choices are simply wrong notions. The handbook may be a guide for judges and lawyers, but it could also be a catalyst for change right down to the societal level. Thank you.